Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Natalie Grace, and I will be your moderator for today's conversation. I first want to say thank you for the whole Carl Storts team. I am so excited to be here today and having this conversation with you all. Empowering voices, women leading the way in a predominantly male field. Today's conversation is about more than representation. It's about resilience, advocacy, and the impact that happens when women lead authentically in spaces that haven't always been made easy to do so. As I mentioned, we're fortunate to be joined by the incredible female leaders from Carl Storts. Carl Storts is a longtime partner of the Mom Project and an organization that is deeply committed to driving innovation and opportunity for women in the workplace. Each of our panelists brings a unique perspective from navigating career growth in an industry historically led by men to shaping cultures that open doors to others. We'll explore their journeys, the lessons they've learned along the way, and how they're helping redefine what leadership looks like today. A few housekeeping notes before we dive in and get started. This session will be saved here on LinkedIn and on the Mom Project's YouTube channel, so please feel free to rewatch it anytime. We unfortunately won't have a ton of time for a question and answer discussion at the end, but hopefully our panelists will answer any of the questions that may come your way throughout this discussion. If not, feel free to drop them into the chat and in the comments, and we'll try to get back to them after the event. Alrighty, well, let's dive in and get to know the team here. I'd first love to introduce to you all Pauline and Amy. They're the co-chairs of WERG, the Women's Employee Resource Group at Carl Storts. They're two women that we here at the Mom Project have had the opportunity to work closely with and are fantastic leaders within their organization. Amy, I'm going to kick it over to you first.
Awesome. Thank you. Hi, I'm Amy Weidry from Carl Storts Endoscopy. I'm the Commercial Programs Director for our U.S. Commercial Division. And here today I'm representing WERG, our Women's Employee Resource Group. And our group is all about fostering connection, mentorship, and professional development for women across the organization. So I am thrilled to join this discussion with the Mom Project and to share what we're doing to empower women at Carl Storts. And I'll pass it on to my co-chair, Pauline.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Pauline Kaino, and as Amy said, I'm the other co-chair of WERG. I'm also the principal marketing manager for commercial financing solutions within our U.S. commercial team. And I am so excited to have Zoe, Jenny, Sanaz, Aloma, and Nikki here with us today. And I just can't wait to hear what they have to share. It's such a great opportunity to learn from the Mom Project and continue building on the work we're doing to support women at Carl Storts. Natalie?
Awesome. Thank you, Amy and Pauline. Ladies, before we get into your background and your work experience and the work that you're doing at Carl Storts, I would love for everybody to just get to know you a little bit more on a personal level. So we're going to start with just two quick icebreaker questions. You can answer them together. What is your favorite ritual to help support your well-being? And since it's the month of November, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about Thanksgiving. So what is also one dish that must be on your Thanksgiving plate? Who would like to kick us off? Nikki, can I have you jump right in first?
Sure. So Nikki Georgiadis, and I have two small kids, so this was a difficult question about well-being. But one thing that I do for myself is that I have a Vedic meditation practice, and that's a twice daily 20-minute practice that has pretty much saved my energy in these tough times. So certainly after the afternoon slump that I feel, I have a meditation, and I feel like I'm ready for chapter 2 of every day. And Thanksgiving, I'm Australian, so I don't think this is going to be the right answer, but I love a nice fresh salad on my plate to just help cleanse and keep the momentum going.
The greens are real. You need them on the plate. You need them on the plate. Aloma, well, I'm going to pass it to you next.
Sure, great, thanks. My name's Aloma Barcelo. For me, I recently started an exercise class that has coaches there to help support and make sure that I'm doing things the right way. It's only 30 minutes, but it really has impacted my mood and how I view the care that I'm taking for my body. I was not very happy with myself because I didn't have a set routine, and now that I have this set routine, it actually makes a really big difference with my mood. So it's been awesome for me. And then something that I absolutely have to have on my plate is the turkey and gravy.
Aloma, I'm also with you on the routine piece. Like you don't realize how much you need something like that. It's so real. Zoe, what about you?
Yeah, I also am a routine person, and exercise helps me so much with my mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Helps me make me feel balanced. And although most of my workouts during the week, I usually do them at home, kind of by myself. The best is when I get to do it in a class with a lot of other people. I love having the kind of community connection when it comes to those workouts. And so I love to go to my local Y, where it's a really diverse community of people. So that's always really fun and a good reset. And for my Thanksgiving plate, as many different forms of potatoes as possible. That's for me.
Oh. Can you tell I love Thanksgiving? I feel like all of you each share something I like. Yes, tell me more about
Also
that. I need that too. Awesome. Thank you, Zoe. Jennifer, what about you?
Hi, so my name is Jennifer Lynch, and I love exercise as well, but my recent guilty pleasure is the infrared sauna. I absolutely love
Ooh.
it. It allows me just kind of a getaway, right, from the distractions of the day, just kind of decompress. I can meditate in there. I can just kind of have a total reset, and I come out just feeling totally reinvigorated. So I would say that's my most recent way to kind of foster my well-being. As far as Thanksgiving, I actually have a favorite recipe that was my grandma Ruby's growing up called kicking collard greens. So it's the only time of year I make it because most of my family, my kids turn their nose up at it, but I absolutely love it. So that's kind of my special dish that I make every
What's in the secret recipe? I mean, I guess you didn't say it.
Oh yeah, no, it's like a roux that has like bacon and garlic and onions. And so you kind of make that, simmer all that down and then add the collards and then you let it simmer for a couple hours and it's delicious.
Yum. All righty, Naz, take us home.
Yeah, hi, Sanaz Imani here, and very much like everybody else, I do enjoy exercise, and specifically, I love my Sunday morning Pilates ritual. I do other workouts during the week, but kind of like Zoe, either it's at home or like I'll try to get a walk in somewhere in between. But
Sure.
Sunday morning Pilates is like the one thing that just calms my nervous system. I need to do it. It's a 1 hour class, but I take full advantage and stretch it to 2 hours with a drive and like listening to a podcast and grabbing coffee after. So it's really my time. And then as far as Thanksgiving, Brussels sprouts, any way possible, like crispy with cranberries, with bacon, like whatever
Yeah,
recipe.
like
I
any.
really, yeah.
I have not dabbled in this yet, but I hear that Brussels sprouts in an air fryer is like the way to prepare them. So fun trick to everyone. I can't
I
give
must buy
full
an air fryer
endorsement,
now.
but I have heard from many of my girlfriends that it's the way to go. So if you don't have an air fryer, maybe you ask one for the holiday gifts.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you for just laying the ground for us to get to know you all a little bit before we dive into a little bit more about work and your backgrounds and what we're here to talk about. With that being said, would love to hear, I know you all sit in different departments at Karl Storz, which is something I'm really excited about, really in regards to this conversation today. So would love to jump in with talking about your role, what you do for Karl Storz, and really your oversight within the organization. Jennifer, I'm going to have you kick us off with this one, if you don't mind.
Okay, of course. Yeah, so I have been in the medical sales profession for over 20 years. I got my start right out of college. I had an internship, which then developed into a sales opportunity with a manufacturing company selling medical devices into a number of different areas, clinical areas, including respiratory therapy, anesthesia, the emergency medical services, and even the NICU. And so I did that for 10 plus years, absolutely loved it, but was fortunate and blessed enough to be able to take a little bit of time off and be a stay-at-home mom. So stay-at-home mom, raising my two daughters for a little bit. As they got a little bit older, decided, okay, it's time to jump back in and get back in the field. So I interviewed and was accepted to a position as a sales rep for a specialty distribution company, calling on many of the same areas that I had previously with medical devices, and then was promoted to director of sales at that position and led a sales team on the East Coast in that role. And then just under 3 years ago, I decided to take a leap of faith and completely switch gears into still in medical device sales, obviously, but into the surgical realm and join Karl Storz. So I am currently a surgical account executive for the video laparoscopic imaging equipment and integration. And I cover the eastern area of Virginia, along with a little bit of the eastern shore of Maryland and Delaware. And best decision I ever made. Just love the company. And I really love that I've had the opportunity to really bring kind of the skills that I've honed over the years from, my business acumen skills to sales skills, and kind of bring those together and be immersed in the surgical field.
I also love that you were able to get to be mom in the midst of all.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Fantastic. Best of both worlds. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks, Jennifer. Nikki, I'm going to pass it to you. Oh, Nikki, you accidentally went on mute.
Sorry about that. I have had a global finance career. So I've worked in teams in Melbourne, where I grew up, in London, New York City, and now in LA. I've only been at Karl Storz for a year and a half. In this role, I lead financial planning and analysis within a bigger regional finance team. In my role, I love that I get to touch every corner of the business, and I get to work with a really diverse group of leaders with different areas of expertise. So really enjoying the role so far.
And I love global. I'm like, you hit on so many fun cities.
Actually, I was going to say all before kids, which was super fun, but we did relocate from New York City to LA with our two young ones.
So fun. And talk about a climate change.
Mm.
A pretty drastic one. Aloma, if you don't mind. Gonna pass
Yeah,
it to you.
sure. Yeah, so I am a customer support operations supervisor right now, and I started with Karl Storz just over 6 years ago. Not in that role. I've since, been promoted from when I first started a couple of times to get to this position. But I love what I do because I am supporting a team of 12 individuals who are working from multiple locations, and I get to be there to help them grow and help them make sure that we are doing what's right for the customer, whether that be a patient, a doctor, somebody that's a buyer planner, or the sales team, whoever that customer may be. And we are a part of a large group in customer support where we're handling anywhere from like 30,000 interactions per month, whether it's phone calls or emails or what have you. So it's great knowing that we're doing the right thing to, have a positive impact at the end of the day with everything that we do.
Sure. And talk about the volume. And Aloma, just hearing you talk about like who you support in that customer support role, like customer is so broad. And I think a good reminder for any of us in organizations. So like you touch many. Thank you for that. Sanaz.
Yes. So I have been in operations for 22, I think, years now. Seems so long. Before joining Karl Storz, only 3 months ago, I was vice president of operations and supply chain at a startup, which was very exciting. It was an ag tech. And then I spent 16 years before that in life sciences, procurement operations, always in the operations realm. But 3 months ago, I joined Karl Storz. And it wasn't so much of a leap of faith because I was confident it was going to be great. I started as a senior director of operational excellence. And then as of 2 weeks ago now, almost, I assumed the role of executive director of supply chain and operational excellence.
Congratulations. That's even since we all met to talk about this. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Yeah, very exciting. We have a very dedicated team of procurement, production planning, customer support in Charlton, Franklin, Goleta. And then the operational excellence team is across the United States, not Canada included yet. But those are really two pockets of operations that I'm very passionate about. So I feel very much privileged to support the team and help Karl Storz improve in its, it's already operationally pretty excellent, but we can take it to the next level. So very excited.
Very exciting, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Zoe.
Yeah, my educational background is in biomedical engineering, and I'm working on my MBA right now, so I'm adding business onto that as well. I've worked at Karl Storz for about 10 years, so it sounds like I'm actually the vet here, which I wasn't expecting. There are a lot of people, it's a testament to what a great company it is to work for. There are a lot of people who have worked at the company for a very long time. I currently manage design verification engineering for imaging systems. The team that I manage is split between Goleta, California, and Tallinn, Estonia. We work on development projects to ensure that our surgical systems are meeting their specifications. So we're testing all different kinds of parameters for internal needs, but also for global regulatory bodies to ensure that the solutions that we're providing are safe and effective. So what I really love about this role, and I love about the space in the R&D space of the company, is that we get to use our engineering skills, our leadership skills, to really make a positive impact on people's lives around the world with the solutions that we're providing. So that is something that excites me and motivates me in my work.
Well, and that is so cool, like to wrap a day and know that you like really are driving really positive impact.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, thank you all for sharing. The Mom Project has had the privilege of working really closely with WURG, as I have shared kind of at the top of our conversation. Jennifer, if you don't mind, would you share just a little bit more about what the group is up to, what you have been the most excited about, and how you're involved in WURG and their initiatives?
Sure. Thanks. Yeah. So I joined WURG pretty early on. When I joined the company, I found out about the organization from our national business meeting, and I was super excited that this group existed. Obviously we are in a male-dominated field, particularly surgical is very male-dominated. And it was a wonderful opportunity for me to meet other women, right, within the company, to find peer support, to look to seek, out female mentors within the company, and really to feel a sense of involvement and community within the company, particularly since I'm an outside field sales rep. I don't have an office space to go to. So, sometimes we out in the field kind of feel a little bit on an island because we don't have that daily interaction with people in an office setting. So WURG was a great opportunity to really, meet additional women, meet people from across our organizational spectrum. As you can see from this call, we're so broad. So I really was excited to join the group. And then actually most recently this year, I'm on the board as part of the External Affairs and Community Outreach. So excited about that. And I will say the event that I've been most excited about so far that we've done was just in October for our Breast Cancer Awareness Month and race and activities. I was so impressed and excited about the collaboration from our group. I mean, coming from, basically the entire country, even Canada, and seeing everybody come together, collaborate, get excited about creating an experience and bringing a spotlight on breast cancer awareness as a company and really embodying that, as we say at Karl Storz, that 1KS, feeling. I felt like we really captured that with this event. And then, of course, as the event unfolded, just really being touched by the amount of excitement and participation within the organization for the event. So, kudos to everybody that participated in that, because I think it was very well done and very well received. For myself, for like kind of future outlook, I would love to see us continue to embrace possibly other organizations that really put a spotlight on young girls and women in STEM careers, and how we can help kind of prepare and get the word out, especially about these opportunities. And additionally, just from the standpoint of being someone in the field, really trying to encourage my colleagues, my female counterparts that are out here, that work exists and that they too, should join this organization and become a part of it, because I think it's definitely a great way to find other women of like-mindedness in the company and to really offer that support.
Totally. And I think Jennifer is such a good reminder for our audience listening too, that even if it's not you don't have work maybe at your organization, or if you're someone that's looking for a new opportunity, just the value that something like this community has brought to you, that is substantial in your work experience and the value it's brought. And that it's okay that can be a priority. I think sometimes we feel like, oh gosh, my job is just the thing I'm executing on, and realizing that the community and who you work with is so important, and the initiatives that you do together. So thank you for sharing that. It's so encouraging to hear. So we've talked a little bit about all of your backgrounds and what you all do at Karl Storz, but would love to dive in a little bit more into what does it really look like to be a woman in a male-dominated role. Jennifer, if you don't mind, I'm gonna have you jump right back on in with that one.
Okay. Yeah, sure, of course. So, in the medical industry, particularly in surgical, there are very few women. There really are. Yep. I see this both as challenging and rewarding. I think the most difficult part is really breaking that glass ceiling, figuring out how to get the opportunity to get a seat at the table. And in order to do that, I think it's really important to network. It's really important we have to master the skills that we're representing, and really hone in on combining professionalism, our emotional intelligence, and our product knowledge. So that's a lot to pull together. And then I think really importantly is we need to own it. Then we need to realize and change our mindset to realize that we do have a spot in this space. We do belong here, and we have unique strengths and talents that we can bring to the table. And I truly believe, like, once we pull all that together and we harness that energy, that then our customers and even our colleagues will really realize that they'll see and realize our competence and stop seeing gender and really start seeing our expertise and respect us for our expertise in the field.
Absolutely. When I think all of you shared at the top of the call with your backgrounds, like you all are subject matter experts in your worlds, and that you are all incredibly capable. So it's a wonderful and great reminder. Zoe, I would love to hear, knowing just your world and that you've been here at Karl Storz specifically for 10 years and sitting in the engineering world, like what has that been like for you?
Yeah, I think about for probably most of us, we've had to get used to being in male-dominated spaces from early career, or even from our educational backgrounds and so on. And so I definitely had some of those experiences. And we probably all have some stories about being the only woman in the room, and maybe having times where we've had to feel like we feel like we have to prove ourselves. And certainly I think as we show our expertise and we show our capabilities, that hopefully is starting to go away a little bit, but it's definitely harder, I think, for folks who are earlier career, as you're sort of getting used to the space and understanding the dynamics and so on. And I think working at Karl Storz, it's been a great opportunity, because I think generally it is a pretty inclusive workspace. So even when the gender diversity hasn't always been super strong, all of our colleagues are very supportive of each other. And so I think it's really important to find people who will support you, and to also be that person for others. And so I do find that I have a lot of really amazing women colleagues. Some of them are here, and of course, others at the site that I work at, and so on. So having women colleagues who you can share experiences with is very valuable. But you also need, especially in a male-dominated space, you need men who will support you and work with you too, of course. So some of my greatest workplace mentors and sponsors have been men. So I think it's really important to think about it more from a community perspective, as everyone coming together to work together. And yes, it can be certainly harder for some people, and it's harder for women, I think, in a lot of cases. But I just kind of echoing what you were just saying about we can own the space that we're working in. And by working hard at what we do and showing that we're really competent and working with others and supporting others and finding that support, we can really excel.
Totally. I think the allyship component is so important. I would say the same thing, Zoe, of my experience. Like I have a lot of men that have been really formative in my career development and advocating for me. And it would be remiss to say that that's not important. Although, like, yeah, we want to make sure we're opening the doors for women to have the same sort of opportunities. Nikki, what about you? Especially from a global perspective, I think it's interesting to hear from you.
A woman in a male-dominated role.
Mhm.
I really don't feel like I have anything to add. We can skip me.
Great. Aloma, anything that you would include with this one?
Yeah, for sure. I've had some previous experiences, environments where it felt like women were viewed as less than and stereotyped into specific roles because of our gender. And when I was fortunate to come over to Karl Storz and the department that I'm in now, there are a lot of women leaders in this department, and they are all very refreshing, and I love having them there to work with them and to learn from them. And they're just so supportive and encouraging, and it's been just an amazing environment for me. I couldn't be more grateful for where I am right now.
I love that. That's so encouraging to hear. Sanaz, would you add anything to this one?
Yeah, I think I feel very similar, like Zoe. When you've worked for so long in a certain area, you become almost used to being mostly surrounded by men. But over the years, I also learned like I'm not going to focus on that so much as a problem, but more as like an opportunity because I have an influence now to improve the circumstances, not just for me, but for other women and also men. You're absolutely right. Uh, the men play an equal role in this, and um, it doesn't mean that inequity or lack of inclusion doesn't exist, but it's been my experience that it's very hard to make positive change when you go into a space assuming that people have an intentional bias and you're going to fight for your rights. You know, if but if you like focus more on people have general good intent, there's maybe a lack of understanding, but I'm going to show up and do a great job. And I'm going to assume that everybody has a growth mindset around me and they will see the value that I add regardless of my gender. I think that's in my experience, has been a much better way to bring people along and show them that we do all belong in that space, regardless of gender or anything.
I think there's so many things you said, Sanaz, that I'm like, yes, yes. But I think the two things that stuck out to me are absolutely the not looking at it as a problem, but as an opportunity of, okay, this might be, I'm going to define reality. I'm the only woman in the room, but I'm not going to go into it looking at it as a negative thing, but like, what can I bring to the table or what opportunity is there? And then coupled with that, just your own posture of how you're entering the space and you have control over that, and not walking into something being like, you know what, I'm not gonna engage, or like however you just like bring yourself is just so important. So thank you for that. Oftentimes here at the Mom Project, we partner with a variety of different employers, and they sometimes feel stuck of like, where do we even start to try to build an inclusive workforce? What are different strategies that we can deploy? I would love to hear from you all, and Nikki, if you don't mind, would love to have you kind of kick off this part of the conversation. What are strategies that companies can implement to create and maintain inclusive workforces when we think about women in the workforce?
Yeah, the first thing that pops into my head is flexibility. It's so important to me. I think that companies need to realize that everyone's juggling. Everyone has a different circumstance, but everyone's just trying to strike a balance. So for me, I have 2 kids. I like to be present in their daily activities. I don't have to drop them off. I have other options, but I want to do the morning drop off and be part of their schooling lives. And so that means that I'm not on camera in morning meetings, or I'm not in the office for them. I'm joining them virtually. And I appreciate that a company can realize that even though I'm not present or like working exactly 9 till 5, that I do what I say that I'll do, and I'm accountable for the results of myself and my team. And I just want to say that I feel so privileged to be able to have that flexibility as a knowledge worker. I know that it's not possible in every profession, but where it's possible, let's extend that to people and empower people. I think the other thing that comes out for me is policies that really focus on trust. I think that's what's coming out in what I'm saying. Like, I trust that you will deliver, do so on your own schedule. Let's focus on outcomes, not rigid work schedules and policies. And that really works for me as a mum.
I love that, Nikki. I think that we talk a lot about flexibility here at the Mom Project, and that so often people just automatically assume that means 100% remote, where I know plenty of people that have 100% remote roles that operate in very rigid and in rigid structures within that. And that flexibility really looks different based on someone's life stage. You referenced 2 young children. There are many people that also are caregiving for parents or you. I mean, you can insert any sort of life circumstance, and flexibility is just valuable to anyone across the board. And yes, so directly connected to trust. So thank you for touching on both of those things. I think incredibly valuable. Jennifer, I know you've been hopping on and off. Want to make sure that you have space to answer this one if needed. Oh, did we just lose her again? Alrighty, well, shifting gears a bit. I would love, I know that many of you lead teams. So Zoe, I'm going to have you kick this one off for us. But how do you ensure that your teams feel supported and included? Knowing, I think, to Nikki, your point that like everyone's life stage is different and that there's a variety of different circumstances. I'd love to hear just like what are some strategies that you deploy to ensure people feel included.
Yeah, well, I'm at risk of repeating everything that Nikki said because I totally agree.
What confirms that it's important? So repeat.
It's important. I'm not a parent, but several people on my team are, and I think, like we were just talking about, it's so important to remember that everyone has unique responsibilities. Everyone can benefit from flexibility where possible. And I think Nikki was so right to point out that certain roles have that availability or can be much more flexible than others. I'm not working in a manufacturing environment, for example, and so I'm able, and my team is not, and so we're able to be a little bit more flexible than in other roles. And so, just recognizing that each individual person has a different circumstance, and you don't necessarily even have to know the details of that, whether they're caretaking for someone, for kids, for parents, for friends, they're continuing their education, whatever it is, having the trust that folks will get their work done and put in their hours and they'll make it work and show up to the meetings that they're needed for, and whether that's calling in without video sometimes or whether they're not available to come into the office or whatever it is, and just trying to start with trust And if you need to, obviously accountability is important too. So if you need to have a follow-up conversation to try and figure out what's going on, and because someone's not following through, tackle that. But really starting with trust and having that kind of be the baseline, I think, is really important.
Yeah, there is so much to be said about trust in the workplace. And I love, Zoe, that you also touched on like just the many different things that could be going on in people's lives. And whether or not they have to share that is another story, but just trusting like, hey, you all have things outside of this. And like, how do we just ensure that everybody has the space to take care of those things? Before we move on, anyone have any other strategies of how you have teams feel supported? Sanaz, I know we're having some video.
I don't know what is happening. I think it's the connection. It says unstable network connection. I'm at the office.
Yeah, I had an issue too. Sorry, I dropped off for a minute, but I'm back. Back
The
on
joys
at
of
the
it.
moment.
Hey, here we all are existing in the joys of remote work. Sometimes
Exactly.
that is the wellness of technology.
I can add, Natalie, though, I was going to add in regards to this question, as I had mentioned earlier, that I took some time off as a stay-at-home mom. And I know when I came on board with Karl Storz, one of the things that was an initiative at the time with Karl Storz was actually trying to employ and bring back into the workforce stay-at-home moms. So I love that that was actually an initiative, because I felt like as I tried to jump back into the workforce, it was really difficult. It was really hard to convince, right, my next employer that, hey, I still have the skills relevant to do this job. Kind of crazy, because it's like, hey, I stayed at home. I didn't like lose all the abilities that I had when I worked for the first 12 years. And as a matter of fact, I feel like I actually learned additional transferable skills just from leadership roles when I stayed at home, right? And things that I did in the community. And so, but getting the opportunity to have that conversation, I think is so important. And I was really impressed that at Storz, they had this initiative to recognize, right, that stay-at-home moms, we want them back in the workforce if they're ready to take that leap back in and offer that opportunity. So I really like that. And then from my perspective too, from a surgical sales rep, like I really love the fact that yes, there are a few few women as far as sales reps, but we have actually a large number of women in executive leadership roles at Karl Storz. And so I love that we have these women in these roles. They're very, it's very empowering to be able to see that and to be able to realize that, with like hard work, perseverance, and if you want that goal, that you can achieve that. And that Storz obviously, welcomes and is open to those opportunities to the most qualified candidates, whether that be male or female.
Yeah, that's such a good reminder too of how, and I feel like we hear this a lot, or maybe I'll speak for myself in that like when you can see yourself somewhere else, like that really does speak volumes of being like, oh wow, they value women this much that they have them sitting in executive leadership roles, or they're allowing WERG to be a thing, using specifically Karl Storz as an example. Like it really is an employer putting into practice the things they say that they believe. And I think going back to what even just Karl Storz does as an organization, you touch all types of people. So like you want to make sure that your organization is reflective of that. And I think that's one of the things that we have appreciated so much in partnering with you all is that that you are all a place of inclusion. So Sanaz, we got you back. We see you.
Yes, I'm
Sanaz,
back.
not to put you on the spot, but I know you lead a team, so would love to hear if you have any insights on how you have welcome your team and make them feel included and supported.
Firstly, I don't know which camera I'm looking at. I know that I'm on.
You are looking at the right one.
Okay.
For whatever it's worth, you're looking at the right place.
So yeah, this was actually an area where I definitely made a bunch of mistakes early on in my career, because it's so important to properly balance support, inclusion, and accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've definitely swung, too far, swung the pendulum too far in one direction, and then had
Sure.
to pivot back, and then it's confusing to people, right? But ultimately, I felt like it comes down to being kind, and for those that have heard Sonal speak, like that's a big thing for him, kindness, and I love that because it's the definition is very, very specific. What is being kind, and what does it mean to clearly communicate? Um, I I take my personal and professional life both very serious,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I generally act responsibly most of the time. But what I think is being responsible and having the right balance is not the same thing for everyone. So I need to clearly communicate that to people, clearly set expectations, and then follow through with my team with both my support as well as my accountability. And to me, that's kindness, right? Being super clear with what you expect, and then if people meet the expectation, then be kind, be flexible, offer even more support. But if they're not, it's really not kind to just be too indulgent and say it's okay. You can still have the flexibility, and you can still be included in all the meetings, even though you're not able to meet the requirement of, or falling behind in your work. So finding that balance is important, because ultimately people want to be successful, but they also want to have a personal life, and not hate that their work is taking away from that. So yeah, I think setting the right expectations, clearly communicating, being kind, and then allowing people to make choices that work for them.
For them.
Yeah.
For sure. I love, Sanaz, also how you even started your answer being like, hey, and I've made mistakes. Like, I think that vulnerability and transparency, even in the way that you just shared, how you have now been operating as a leader within the business is such a good reminder too, that like just in all of these conversations, like we will mess up, the people that we work with will also mess up, that like this is not something that we eventually perfect, and
Yeah.
and then it goes on. But that there are times that we have to be flexible and nimble, even in the way that we approach it. So thank you for your vulnerability there. I think that's, I think, really helpful for all of us to hear. For the sake of time, I'm gonna jump over one question, but would really love, we talked a bit about this just as you all entering the workforce as women and the different departments that you sit in, and maybe think about this outside of even your time at Karl Storz, but who in your life would you say has been your biggest inspiration, someone that you look up to, or someone that's helped you get where you are today? And if that person has any words of wisdom that they shared with you, or any great piece of advice for our community to hear. Aloma, I'm gonna have you kick us off with this one.
Okay, great. So someone I absolutely have to shout out is my Aunt Marge. She's a single woman doing what she wants, being successful, enjoying her life, taking trips, holding down a very large friend group. She just amazes me all the time. She's currently in her 70s, has a very active personal life, more than I could even imagine for myself, which includes participating in sports and hanging out with her friends. She takes trips every year with her college friends. She just never puts any limits on herself. She just says, I want to do that, and she does it. And it's just awesome.
Never puts any limits on herself. I feel like so many of the themes that you all have shared today come from a place of just like being confident in your abilities and knowing who you are and how you show up in the room. And it sounds like Aunt Marge has done a lot of that for you, of like just showing you how to live
Yes.
boldly and with confidence in the way that she operates and goes through the world. I think a lesson that's so impactful in the workforce, and by the way, Aunt Marge is living also outside of a working career. Thank you for sharing that, Aloma. That's encouraging. Nikki, what about you?
I want to talk about my mentor and family friend, Chris, who modeled for me what juggling a kick-ass finance career and being an amazing mother actually looks like so
Yeah.
intimately, because I've known and been loved by her since I was born, and also she's been there for me through every step of my career. She showed me, she brought me into her office when I was in high school, and I did work experience watching how she worked. And then at every hard, kind of uncertain point in my career, I know I have a compassionate and really knowledgeable ear in her. So I just feel so privileged to have someone that knows me and I know her so well, guiding me through. Yeah.
Isn't there such value to in like being known? Um, in again, going back to like how do we then operate in a world like I'm sure Chris has given you loads of confidence because what wisdom she's embarked in you has allowed you to then step into spaces knowing like the conversation that you just had, whether it's about a career move or parenting or what have you, is with someone that knows you.
Yes.
Yeah, that is so impactful. Well, we thank Chris for all of that.
Thank you, Chris.
All of that she's brought to you, Nikki. What about you, Jennifer?
Yeah, so for me, it's my mom. My mom unfortunately passed away young. I was just a freshman in college. And yeah, but she had, obviously, she's my mother, had such a huge impact on me. And I grew up from pretty meager circumstances when I was young. And her lessons to me and my brothers were always about grit. Like, hey, look, you may not have, a silver spoon, you may not have all the resources that other people have, but if you have grit, if you show up and you have that combination of passion and perseverance and hard work, and you show up every day and you do your best and you bring what you have, your skills to the table, you will be successful. And, I think that really stuck with me all through college and into my professional career and even in my personal life. And so I feel like I owe it to her that, just instilling that in me from such a young age has really made me the person I am today and giving me the success that I have. And I try to like instill that in my daughters as well.
And like what a legacy. I think Jennifer just like learning more about who you are and your career journey. And I think especially touching on the having stepped away from the workforce and the reentry component and knowing how that's such a challenge for many women. That's a lot of what we do here at the Mom Project is supporting women as they re-enter after that career gap. And it had to take a lot of grit. And I'm sure you did have to say, knock down those doors of like, no, I'm ready and qualified. Those 12 years meant something. So I'm sure you were making your mother very proud.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Alrighty, so our final question, and I would love for all of you to answer, is thinking through whether it's a career pivot into the medical sales industry, or not sales, Jennifer, that's specifically you, but medical device industry. Or if it's just someone that's starting new in their career, what piece of advice would you give to women in the workforce at this stage? Zoe, I'm going to have you kick us off if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, I think building connections and community has really served me very well in my career, and I think I started that pretty early. So for someone who's just getting started in their career or is interested in a new industry, reach out to people. You can reach out to probably any of us on LinkedIn and we'll respond. So that's a great way to just start to kind of get your feet wet a little bit and learn more about the industry that you're interested in entering or a different kind of role. And I sometimes talk about this, but like networking can sometimes be heard as like sort of a nasty word. Like people are like, ew, networking. Networking doesn't have to be that. Networking can be about building community and building relationships. And if you think about it in that way, it really is such a great way to invest some of your time as you're doing your career exploration and as you continue in your career. I've had so many great opportunities for growth during my time at Karl Storz, and so much of that is, yes, executing, doing good work, but also through the formal and informal connections I have with so many people across the company. And I've built that over the last 10 plus years, kind of being in the space. And so I would really encourage people to make an effort to step outside of the bubble that they're in right now and really kind of take an opportunity, reach out to someone. That could be, if it's in a new industry, maybe someone will let you shadow them for a day in their job, or they'll have a Zoom call with you and learn, and you can learn a little bit about their experiences, and just kind of building on that. And in addition to the potential benefits for your career and to explore and learn about what you might be interested in, it also just makes things more fun. It makes work more fun when you know your colleagues. It makes the industry more fun when you know people around, if you go to a conference or whatever. So I really think that's a great way to invest in community, invest in yourself.
Zoe, that was a fantastic answer. I feel like you just rebranded networking.
Thank you.
But I think there is so much to be said about that, of like,
yeah,
the amount of times I feel like I will have people reach out to me on LinkedIn of like, hey, I just want to learn a little bit. I'm like, oh my gosh, of course. And like, what's the worst thing that someone's going to do? Like not answer you. And then like and of course, like, not that we don't want to operate in the world that people aren't answering each other, but like, yeah, it takes a moment of vulnerability to be like, hey, would you hop on the line with me? And like how often in return it ends up being, even if it's not a new job, what have you, it's just like a connection and then another touch point. A great reminder. Thank you. Aloma, what about you?
Yeah, sure. So I would suggest that they be confident in who they are and the skills that they bring. Make sure that you accept what your shortfalls are. You have to be okay with that, and don't let those shortfalls discourage you from being able to move forward and grow, and build on your strengths. And of course, network outside of the immediate group of individuals that you work with regularly, and get to know other leaders and the history of how they got to where they are.
Yeah, Aloma, you just hit on like so many fantastic nuggets. But I think the one that I think is so important is like knowing where your weaknesses are, and more from a just defining reality. Not necessarily that like that means a place you have to dwell on, or just being like, hey, I maybe am not great at insert whatever. I mean, knowing that all of us span different orgs and different roles, but I think helpful to know like, hey, just know how to name it and move on. And really lean into where your strengths are is so important. Sanaz.
Yeah, I mean, I could very easily say whatever Zoe said and Aloma said. I have to just fully agree with that. And I do, right? Networking is so important, but sometimes so scary to do especially if you're introverted. But it can mean different things for different people. I got this job through networking with strong women that are my friends, not professional people. I also got this job through LinkedIn harassing people. So that works.
Both and
Yeah.
we can hold two truths.
Yes, exactly.
Girlfriends and LinkedIn, two great tools.
Yeah. But I will say, you should just do it. Really just do it. Don't be afraid. There's lack of diversity, there's inequity. Not all companies are super inclusive. But we've made significant progress. I've seen it in the last 20 years that I've been working, and we've made so much progress. And really, like Aloma's aunt kind of said, the last thing you need is to doubt and let doubt and fear limit you. Like just do it. Yeah.
Jennifer.
So, everybody said a lot of great things. So, but I will say, just to kind of tag on, just, really just being confident and taking that leap of faith, right? And I always tell myself and I tell my daughters, hey, you lose 100% of the opportunities you don't take. What's the worst that can happen, right? You get a no. So what? You really have to embrace that growth mindset that, hey, I'm going to have a lot more no's than yeses. And that's okay. That's where we grow in that space. If everybody said yes to us and things were easy all the time, we wouldn't have the growth as an individual. And so I think just embracing that growth mindset, not being afraid to put yourself out there. And again, I always think to myself, literally, if I do this, what's the absolute worst thing that can happen, right? Usually it's not that bad. Usually it's like, oh, I didn't get the job. I didn't get the interview, whatever. Okay, who cares? Build on it and move on. And, just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And, that goes in the vein with, talking about networking too, like, Sanaz, I think you were saying about the deep dive down LinkedIn, it's like also not being afraid to go like a couple of layers deeper, right? So like you've reached out, you applied for the job, but like, hey, who's the hiring manager? Hey, who can I find, who are their friends on LinkedIn? Hey, did they go to the college I graduated to? Are they in the same sorority I was in? Like being willing to kind of go deeper into those deeper levels and be confident in that, and realizing that really the worst case scenario is never really that bad. So just do it.
Well, and like, I think that's also such a good reminder, Jennifer, of just like connection too, of, hey, your alma mater might be all you need, or your sorority, or you grew up in the same, whatever. Is such a good reminder. All righty, Nikki, take us home.
Yes, so I just want to remind everyone listening that you deserve the best. And when you're scoping different organizations or different opportunities, you are also interviewing them. And I really urge you to seek information for yourself to make the right decision for you. You have options, even though sometimes it feels like you don't. You actually do. So for example, when you're interviewing for a job, you are asking lots of questions. You're trying to find out, is this line manager aligned with my values? What sort of behaviors in this organization's culture is rewarded? What is the culture really? How is it coming to life? Because there's so many factors that make work either good or really negative, and thinking about all those things that you need and scoping them out to make an informed decision for yourself.
I think, Nikki, a handful of years ago when I was on the job market, I remember someone sharing that advice with me of, you are interviewing them also, and it dramatically impacting my choices in the places that I ended up after that. There is so much to be said about that, of the teams you're a part of, who you work for. I think all of you have shared that with your appreciation of Karl Storz and the way that you have landed the roles that you were in, of who you work for, and the culture of an organization is so important, and it's important for you to ask, and that's a part of the process too. So thank you for touching on that, Nikki. My goodness, this time flew by. Thank you all so much for joining us. Zoe, Nikki, Aloma, Jennifer, Sanaz, the wisdom abounds. Thank you for your thoughtfulness and your wisdom. I know I have learned so much today from your experience, and I am confident that that is true of our audience. Many takeaways. A reminder to everybody watching this recording will be on the Mom Project's YouTube channel, as well as our LinkedIn page, if you would like to come back and review. Again, thank you to Amy and Pauline and WURG. Just so grateful for the partnership with Karl Storz. Thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Natalie.